Hello, esteemed gentlemen. Pay close attention. The easiest person to laugh at is often the hardest person to defeat. Bullies have a simple rule. They look for reactions, not resistance. They aren't searching for the strongest person in the room. They're searching for the one who will give them the biggest emotional reward. But every now and then, they make a mistake that completely changes the game. They pick someone who refuses to play by the rules they understand. Here's something fascinating. Psychologists have long observed that many bullies are driven by the expectation of a response. Whether it's fear, anger, or desperation, the reaction is often the real prize. Remove that reward, and the bully's confidence can begin to crumble. It's like showing up to a boxing match, only to discover your opponent signed you up for a chess tournament instead. And let's be honest, nothing confuses a bully more than someone who looks at their best insult the way most people look at a software update notification. Not now, maybe later. That is exactly why trying to bully a Sigma male often backfires in ways most people never expect. Not because he's louder, not because he's tougher, and certainly not because he thinks he's invincible. It happens because he responds to pressure in ways that don't make sense to someone who depends on intimidation to feel powerful. In today's video, we're uncovering 12 extraordinary reasons why bullying a Sigma male is one of the biggest psychological miscalculations a person can make. Some of these reasons are subtle, some are unsettling, and a few might completely change the way you see conflict itself. By the time we reach the final point, you'll understand why the biggest mistake a bully can make isn't choosing the strongest target. It's choosing the one they can never truly control. Number 1. He quietly studies your pattern before reacting. One of the biggest mistakes a bully can make is assuming silence means weakness. A Sigma male doesn't always respond the moment he's challenged because his mind is busy doing something far more valuable than arguing. While the bully is focused on winning the moment, he's focused on understanding the person behind the behavior. He pays attention to patterns that most people completely miss. He notices when the insults become more aggressive, when the confidence suddenly disappears, and when the bully only acts tough in front of certain people. He sees the difference between someone who is genuinely fearless and someone who is simply putting on a performance. That's what makes him difficult to intimidate. He isn't trapped inside the emotion of the moment. He's studying it. Every interaction becomes a source of information. The bully may think they're taking control, but they're actually revealing how they think, what frustrates them, and where their confidence begins to crack. Without realizing it, they hand over pieces of themselves with every insult, every threat, and every desperate attempt to get a reaction. Most people are so eager to defend themselves that they never stop to observe. A Sigma male does the opposite. He knows that people often expose their true character when they believe they're in control. That's why he doesn't rush to interrupt. He lets actions do the talking. Ironically, the longer the bullying continues, the clearer the bully becomes. The mask starts slipping. Small habits become obvious. Emotional triggers become predictable. Weaknesses that were carefully hidden begin to show themselves. By the time the bully thinks they've figured the Sigma male out, the opposite has already happened. The Sigma male has quietly built a complete picture of the person standing in front of him. He understands what motivates them, what they fear, and what they're trying so hard to hide. That kind of understanding is difficult to gain in a heated argument, but surprisingly easy to gain through patient observation. And that's why silence, when used wisely, is often far more revealing than the loudest words ever spoken. Number 2. Every attack gives him more information than it costs him. Most bullies believe every insult is a victory. They think every rude comment, every attempt to embarrass someone, and every act of intimidation puts them one step ahead. What they fail to realize is that every attack also exposes something about themselves, and that is exactly where a Sigma male gains the advantage. He doesn't just hear the words, he listens for what the words reveal. An insult often says more about the person giving it than the person receiving it. A bully who constantly mocks intelligence may secretly feel insecure about their own. Someone who targets another person's success may be struggling with jealousy. A person who always needs to embarrass others in public is often chasing approval from the crowd. These are not random actions. They are clues. The Sigma male understands that people under emotional pressure rarely hide who they really are. The more determined someone becomes to break him, the more they unintentionally expose their own fears, habits, and motives. They think they're attacking, but they're leaving fingerprints everywhere. That's why he doesn't rush to defend himself after every comment. He knows that reacting too quickly can make him miss valuable information. Instead, he watches how far the other person is willing to go, what pushes them, and what they hope to achieve. Over time, a clear pattern begins to appear. The strange part is that bullies often repeat themselves without realizing it. They use the same tricks, the same insults, and the same emotional games because those methods worked on other people, but the Sigma male notices the repetition. Once he sees the pattern, the surprise is gone, and when the surprise disappears, so does much of the bully's power. This is why trying to wear down a Sigma male often produces the opposite result. Every failed attempt teaches him something new while costing him very little. He becomes harder to read, while the bully becomes easier to predict. Number 3. He doesn't care about winning the audience. One of the hidden reasons bullying works so often is because it usually isn't just about the target. It's about the people watching. Many bullies feed off attention. They want laughter, shocked reactions, whispers, or silent approval from the crowd. Every pair of eyes becomes fuel for their ego. Without an audience, much of their confidence begins to fade. A Sigma male understands this without anyone having to explain it to him. That's why he refuses to compete for the crowd's approval. He isn't interested in proving that he's tougher, louder, or more popular than the person trying to humiliate him. He knows that the moment he starts performing for spectators, he has stepped onto a stage he never wanted to be on. This completely changes the dynamic. While the bully is looking around to see who is impressed, the Sigma male remains focused on himself. He doesn't waste energy trying to win strangers over or convince everyone that he's the good guy. He understands something many people learn too late. Crowds are unpredictable. The same people cheering for you today can ignore you tomorrow. Building your confidence on public opinion is like building a house on sand. That mindset makes him incredibly difficult to manipulate. Embarrassment loses its sting when your self-worth isn't tied to applause. Public criticism becomes less frightening when you don't need public validation to feel secure. Ironically, this often creates an uncomfortable silence. The bully expects an emotional performance but gets almost nothing in return. No desperate defense, no dramatic argument, no attempt to win the room. The audience is left waiting for a scene that never happens. Over time, people begin noticing something unexpected. The louder one person becomes, the calmer the other remains. The contrast speaks louder than words ever could. Without trying to steal the spotlight, the Sigma male often earns quiet respect simply because he refused to chase it. Number 4. He's comfortable being misunderstood. One of the strongest weapons a bully uses isn't always insults or threats. Sometimes it's the ability to twist the story. They spread rumors, make false accusations, or paint someone as the villain, hoping the pressure of public opinion will force them to react. For many people, that kind of attack is unbearable. They feel an urgent need to explain themselves, defend every accusation, and convince everyone that they're innocent. A Sigma male sees this very differently. He understands that not every misunderstanding deserves an explanation. In fact, he knows that constantly trying to correct every rumor can make it grow even bigger. Some people don't ask questions because they want the truth. They ask because they enjoy the drama. Feeding that cycle only gives it more life. Instead, he lets his actions do what arguments often cannot. He knows that people are free to form opinions, but opinions are not the same as facts. Someone may misunderstand him today and see things clearly months later. Others may never understand him at all. Either way, he refuses to make their approval the center of his life. That doesn't mean he enjoys being judged unfairly. It means he refuses to let someone else's misunderstanding control his peace of mind. This level of emotional discipline frustrates many bullies. They expect panic. They expect long explanations and emotional speeches. Instead, they find someone who is comfortable letting time reveal the truth. That patience often becomes more powerful than any clever comeback. There is also confidence behind this mindset. A Sigma male knows who he is when nobody is clapping for him and when nobody is criticizing him. His identity isn't built on rumors, compliments, or gossip. It's built on what he consistently does when no one is paying attention. Ironically, the more he refuses to chase approval, the more people begin paying closer attention to his character instead of the stories being told about him. Consistent actions have a way of exposing lies without a single argument. Number 5. He lets arrogance do the damage for him. One of the biggest traps a bully falls into is believing that early success guarantees future victory. After getting away with intimidating a few people, confidence slowly turns into arrogance. They stop being careful. They assume they can read everyone, control every situation, and predict every reaction. That false confidence is often the beginning of their downfall. A Sigma male understands this better than most. Instead of rushing to prove the bully wrong, he allows arrogance to reveal itself. He knows that people who think they cannot lose eventually stop paying attention. They become careless with their words, reckless with their decisions, and blind to the consequences of their own actions. That is why he doesn't feel pressured to strike back immediately. He knows that impatience often ruins good judgment. While the bully is celebrating small victories, the Sigma male is watching confidence slowly become overconfidence. There is a subtle difference between strength and arrogance. Strength stays alert because it respects the possibility of failure. Arrogance assumes failure only happens to other people. That mindset causes people to take bigger risks, make louder claims, and underestimate those they look down on. The Sigma male doesn't need to create that weakness. He simply waits for it to appear. It's surprising how often people defeat themselves. A bully who believes they're untouchable starts saying too much, revealing too much, and pushing too far. They begin crossing lines they once avoided because they think there will never be consequences. Eventually, their own behavior turns people against them. Respect disappears, trust fades, and the image they worked so hard to build begins to crack. The Sigma male understands that nothing exposes poor character faster than unchecked pride. That's why he refuses to interrupt the process with emotional reactions. Sometimes the fastest way to expose someone's true nature is to stop getting in their way. Number 6. He rarely fights the battle you prepared for. One of the greatest frustrations for a bully is facing someone who refuses to follow the script. Most bullies expect a familiar sequence of events. They provoke, the other person gets angry, an argument begins, emotions take over, and they gain the upper hand. It's a routine they've practiced many times before. A Sigma male quietly breaks that routine. He understands that the moment you fight on someone else's terms, you've already handed them an advantage. If the bully wants a shouting match, he doesn't shout. If they want a public argument, he doesn't give them one. If they're hoping to pull him into endless drama, he simply refuses to step into it. That doesn't mean he's afraid of confrontation. It means he's selective about where he spends his energy. He knows that not every battle deserves his attention. Some conflicts are designed to distract, exhaust, and keep people emotionally trapped. The bully wants him focused on proving a point, while life, opportunities, and personal growth continue moving forward. The Sigma male refuses to let someone else's negativity become the center of his world. Instead, he changes the game entirely. Sometimes that means walking away from toxic people without making a dramatic announcement. Sometimes it means quietly building a better career instead of arguing with those who doubted him. Sometimes it means ending a friendship, leaving an unhealthy environment, or refusing to respond to repeated provocations. To outsiders, it may seem like nothing happened, but in reality, everything changed. The bully prepared for a fight, yet the Sigma male chose progress. The bully expected revenge, yet he chose distance. The bully wanted control, yet he quietly removed himself from the situation altogether. This is what makes him so difficult to deal with. You can't force someone into a battle they never agreed to fight. Every attempt to provoke them feels like throwing punches at empty air. Number 7. He can remove himself without feeling like he lost. One of the biggest reasons bullying continues is because many people believe walking away means they've been defeated. Pride tells them they have to stay, argue, prove a point, or somehow get even. The bully counts on that way of thinking. They want the other person to become emotionally trapped, reacting to every insult and every challenge until the conflict takes over their life. A Sigma male refuses to fall into that trap. He understands that leaving a toxic situation is not surrender. It's a decision. There's a huge difference between running away because you're afraid and walking away because you know your peace is worth protecting. He doesn't confuse the two. This mindset makes him incredibly difficult to control. A bully can only keep someone trapped if that person believes they have no choice but to stay. The Sigma male always remembers he has a choice. If a friendship becomes toxic, he leaves. If a workplace is filled with constant disrespect, he begins looking for a better opportunity. If someone repeatedly tries to provoke him, he creates distance without feeling guilty about it. He doesn't stay just to satisfy his ego. Many people waste years trying to win battles that never should have started. They keep returning to people who drain them, hoping that one day they'll finally receive respect. The Sigma male knows respect cannot be forced. If someone refuses to give it, he doesn't spend his life begging for it. What surprises the bully most is how quickly he moves on. While they're still expecting another argument, another emotional reaction, or another chance to provoke him, he's already focused on something that actually improves his life. That's because he values progress more than pride. He knows that every minute spent fighting someone determined to create chaos is a minute stolen from his own goals, relationships, and peace of mind. He refuses to make that trade. Number 8, he doesn't depend on social approval for his identity. One of the most powerful tools a bully has is the fear of rejection. They don't just want to hurt someone, they want that person to feel isolated, embarrassed, or desperate to be accepted again. They know that many people will do almost anything to avoid being laughed at, excluded, or judged by others. A Sigma male is different because his identity isn't built on applause. He doesn't wake up every morning wondering who approves of him or whether everyone likes him. He understands a simple truth that many people spend years learning. If your confidence depends on other people's opinions, then other people will always have control over your emotions. That's a dangerous way to live. The Sigma male chooses something far more stable. He measures himself by his values, his discipline, and the promises he keeps to himself. Those things don't disappear because someone insults him or because a crowd decides to criticize him for a day. This makes bullying far less effective. The bully expects embarrassment to break his confidence. Instead, they discover that confidence built from within doesn't collapse under outside pressure. They can mock his personality, question his choices, or try to make him feel different. But none of it changes who he believes he is. That doesn't mean harsh words never sting. He's human, just like everyone else. But he doesn't allow temporary opinions to become permanent truths about himself. He knows that people judge through the lens of their own experiences, emotions, and biases. Their opinion is simply that, an opinion. Ironically, the less he chases approval, the more respect he often earns. People notice someone who doesn't bend every time the crowd changes direction. They notice someone who stays true to himself even when it's unpopular. The bully finds this confusing because their strategy depends on emotional control. If they can't make someone question their own worth, much of their influence disappears. Number 9. He doesn't waste time proving his strength. One of the easiest people to manipulate is the one who constantly feels the need to prove themselves. Tell them they're weak, and they'll rush to show how strong they are. Question their intelligence, and they'll argue for hours trying to convince everyone they're smart. Challenge their confidence, and they'll do almost anything to protect their image. A Sigma male doesn't fall into that trap. He understands that real strength doesn't need constant advertising. In fact, the louder someone talks about how powerful they are, the more likely they're trying to convince themselves. Genuine confidence is surprisingly quiet because it has nothing to prove. This is where many bullies become frustrated. They throw out insults hoping to trigger an emotional response. They expect him to defend his reputation, argue over every accusation, or compete in a battle of egos. Instead, he stays focused on what actually matters. He knows that spending hours trying to change the mind of someone determined to misunderstand him is one of the worst investments he can make. His energy goes somewhere else. While others are busy talking about success, he's building it. While they're arguing over who's stronger, he's improving his skills. While they're chasing recognition, he's chasing growth. He would rather become capable than be seen as capable. That difference is what separates appearance from reality. The funny thing is, people often mistake his silence for weakness. They assume that because he isn't defending himself, he must not have anything to defend. But time has a way of exposing the truth. Eventually, results begin speaking louder than arguments ever could. The bully may win attention for a moment, but attention fades. Skill remains. Discipline remains. Character remains. The Sigma male knows that life doesn't hand out rewards for winning every argument. It rewards consistency, patience, and the ability to keep moving forward while others are distracted by noise. That's why he refuses to waste valuable time trying to impress people who have already made up their minds. He'd rather invest that time becoming stronger than explaining why he's strong. Number 10. He never gives you the emotional ending you wanted. Every bully has an expectation. Before they say a word or make their move, they've already imagined how the other person will react. They expect anger, fear, frustration, or tears. They want a dramatic ending where they walk away feeling powerful, and the other person walks away feeling defeated. That emotional payoff is often the real reason they bully in the first place. A Sigma male quietly refuses to provide it. He understands that not every situation deserves an emotional performance. He knows that once someone gains control over your reactions, they begin believing they have control over you. That's why he is careful about what he gives away. His emotions are real, but he doesn't place them in the hands of someone who hasn't earned that level of influence. This can be surprisingly unsettling for a bully. Instead of getting the explosive argument they expected, they're met with calm. Instead of seeing panic, they see patience. Instead of watching someone desperately defend themselves, they see someone who simply refuses to turn the moment into a spectacle. That lack of reaction creates something many bullies are not prepared for: uncertainty. They start wondering whether their words had any effect at all. They replay the encounter in their minds, looking for signs that they got under his skin. The silence begins to bother them more than any insult ever could, because people often fear what they cannot read. The Sigma male understands that closure is a luxury not every conflict deserves. Some people expect a final confrontation, a heated exchange, or one last chance to prove they're right. He doesn't always give them that opportunity. Sometimes he simply moves on, leaving them with unanswered questions and unfinished expectations. This isn't about pretending not to care. It's about refusing to let another person's behavior dictate how his story ends. Life is too valuable to spend chasing emotional victories over people who thrive on conflict. The Sigma male would rather protect his peace than satisfy someone else's need for drama. Number 11. He doesn't need to expose your weaknesses. Life eventually will. One of the first instincts many people have after being bullied is to strike back. They start looking for secrets, weaknesses, or embarrassing mistakes they can use as ammunition. For a moment, that kind of revenge feels satisfying. But a Sigma male understands that exposing someone isn't always necessary. More often than not, people reveal themselves without any help. He has seen it happen too many times. Someone who lies eventually forgets which version of the story they told. Someone who constantly puts others down eventually pushes away the very people they wanted to impress. Someone who lives behind a mask eventually gets tired of wearing it. The truth has a strange habit of showing up even when nobody goes looking for it. That's why a Sigma male doesn't waste his time trying to tear someone apart. He knows that poor character has an expiration date. It may survive for weeks, months, or even years, but eventually it begins to crack under its own weight. Bullies rarely believe this. They think they can control every conversation, every rumor, and every opinion forever. But life has a way of testing people when nobody is watching. Pressure reveals what appearances often hide. The person who looked confident yesterday may fall apart when things stop going their way. The person who acted superior may suddenly find themselves alone because they spent years destroying trust. The Sigma male doesn't celebrate those moments. He simply isn't surprised by them. He understands that character is like a shadow. You can't outrun it forever. Eventually, it catches up. That's why he spends more time building himself than trying to destroy someone else. He knows that investing in his own values will always produce better results than obsessing over another person's downfall. Ironically, this patience often becomes his greatest strength. While others are busy exposing people, he lets time do the work. Time doesn't play favorites. It eventually reveals who was honest, who was pretending, who was loyal, and who was only wearing a convincing disguise. Number 12. The greatest revenge is becoming impossible to control. Every bully wants the same thing, even if they never admit it. It isn't just about insults, intimidation, or making someone feel small. At its core, bullying is about control. They want to influence how you think, how you feel, the choices you make, and even the way you see yourself. The moment they can dictate your emotions, they believe they've won. A Sigma male refuses to hand over that kind of power. He understands that real freedom begins the moment you stop allowing difficult people to decide your emotional state. That doesn't mean he never feels hurt or disappointed. It means he refuses to let those feelings become a steering wheel that someone else can grab whenever they choose. This changes everything. The bully expects their words to linger in his mind long after the encounter is over. They hope he'll replay every insult, question his worth, and carry that emotional weight for days, weeks, or even years. But the Sigma male has learned that carrying someone else's bitterness only slows down his own journey. Instead of becoming consumed by revenge, he becomes consumed by growth. Every challenge becomes a reason to become wiser. Every setback becomes motivation to become stronger. Every attempt to break his confidence becomes another reminder that his identity belongs to him alone. He refuses to let painful experiences define his future. That is the one outcome a bully never expects. They prepare for resistance. They prepare for retaliation. They prepare for an endless cycle of conflict. What they don't prepare for is irrelevance. They don't know what to do when the person they tried to control keeps moving forward, as though their approval, insults, and opinions no longer matter. There is something incredibly powerful about becoming emotionally unavailable to manipulation. When someone can no longer push your buttons, those buttons stop being weapons. When they can no longer influence your decisions, they lose the very control they were chasing. Conclusion. Bullying has never been just about power. It's about finding someone who can be controlled, manipulated, or broken. That's why the strongest response isn't always the loudest one. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to stay true to yourself, protect your peace, and refuse to let someone else dictate your emotions. As you've seen throughout this video, a Sigma male doesn't rely on intimidation, revenge, or endless arguments to deal with bullies. He understands that patience often reveals more than anger, discipline lasts longer than pride, and true strength isn't measured by how many battles you win. It's measured by the battles you wisely choose to avoid. The most dangerous thing to a bully isn't a person with the biggest ego or the quickest temper. It's someone who cannot be manipulated, someone who doesn't seek approval, doesn't panic under pressure, and doesn't allow negativity to shape the course of their life. When you become that person, you take away the one thing every bully is chasing: control. Remember, your greatest victory isn't proving people wrong. It's building a life that no longer revolves around their opinions. The moment you stop living for their reactions is the moment you start living for your own purpose. If you enjoyed this video and found these insights valuable, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another video. If any of these points resonated with you, leave a comment below and tell us which one stood out the most. Your perspective could inspire someone else who needs to hear it today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep your mind sharp, your standards high, and never let someone else's darkness determine the direction of your life.